Back at the cleaners' headquarters, a man announces with pride that his work is done, though Ruto hasn't the slightest idea what he means. He asks directly, and before the man can reply, Semiyu welcomes them back, mentioning she's already heard about the chaos in Canvas Town. Her awareness of the incident catches Ruto off guard. The mysterious man then reveals that the mask for the prodigy is ready, and Engine immediately understands. This is August, the artisan responsible for crafting their gear. He explains that August handles all equipment and weapons for the cleaners. August chimes in, confirming Ruto's mask is finished. He notes that it's a flawless fit, boasting that since they hadn't met face to face, he measured Ruto while he was asleep, ensuring perfection. Apparently, Engine and Semiyu also briefed him on Ruto's personality, so the design was based on that, and the boss's final choice. The result? Something that looks absolutely cool. Ruto snaps out of his confusion, startled by the idea of being measured in his sleep. He blurts out a protest, asking if that actually happened. August simply nods, saying he lucked out. Ruto had left his door unlocked. Ruto, flustered, fires back with a sarcastic insult while Engine chuckles, teasing that maybe people from the sky just don't lock their doors. Rio casually comments that Ruto never sleeps deeply, so someone must really have a knack for catching him at the right time. Ruto eyes her, puzzled, and demands how she could even know that. Before she can answer, a voice calls out. Aishia cheerfully runs over, calling August her big brother. Ruto blinks in surprise as August waves at her, and she scolds him for always being so noisy and causing trouble for others. Still processing, Ruto turns to August, asking if he really just said what he thinks he did. Are they actually siblings? No one bothers to clarify as the group shifts gears, placing Ruto's freshly crafted full-face mask on some luggage and heading to the cleaner's garage. Ruto grumbles under his breath, already irritated by how chaotic the group is. At the garage, Zenka and Engine exchange a glance, then Engine tells Ruto to take off his choker for a bit, leaving him confused. It's explained that the kanji for choker literally means human connection cord. Ruto hesitantly removes it, unsure what's happening. Around him, the other cleaners begin an unusual ritual, some biting their own fingers, others cutting them with scissors. Alarmed, Ruto blurts out a question about what exactly they're doing. Engine steps forward calmly, telling him to relax and asks again for the choker. The group lets their blood drip into small vials, and Engine explains with a smirk that the choker is more than just an accessory, it's a transmitter, almost like a telephone. Ruto listens closely as Engine adds that through it, he can communicate with anyone he's exchanged blood with. Realization dawns on him. So that's the reason behind everyone wearing those collars. For a second he wonders if it's some sort of advanced tech, but then considers it might be a giver ability instead. Follow chimes in, saying that something about sharing blood just naturally makes people feel like friends. He reassures Ruto that he can call on them anytime. Engine then points out that it's Ruto's turn to return the favor and hand over his blood. The prodigy stares, eyes wide, but silently complies. Later, the cleaners prepare to move out. Engine announces it's finally time to search for the woman rumored to live near the border in the Forbidden Zone. Before they leave, he eyes Ruto's luggage and asks if he's packed too much junk. Ruto defends himself, saying they're just backups, nothing more. Engine reminds him that they'll be walking the whole way and this is no picnic. Once they step into the Forbidden Zone, danger is a guarantee. Ruto nods with determination, ready for whatever lies ahead. As the group enters the desolate terrain known as Penta, the air grows stifling. Engine mentions the brutal heat as one member kneels, sifting through the earth, questioning whether it's true sand or dusted waste. Just then, a low rumble breaks the silence. The entire group stiffens. Engine announces the approach of aberrant beasts, and Ruto instinctively braces himself for battle. In a quick flashback, August had given Ruto instructions for the Forbidden Zone gear. He needed to wear the half mask first, connect it to the oxygen cylinder, then seal it off with the outer piece to complete the full face. That configuration would serve as his complete protection out there. Back in the present, the earth suddenly trembles and from beneath the sand, a massive creature bursts forth. It looks like a monstrous scorpion, its sheer size towering over them. Rio stares in awe, commenting on how massive it is, while the other cleaners calmly assess the beast. Delman remarks that Ruto better get used to this kind of threat, and Tamsi, almost amused, wonders aloud if things are finally getting interesting. Engine keeps everyone focused, stating that the woman they're searching for is still far ahead from their current location, and warns Ruto not to lag behind. Ruto, serious and focused, assures him he won't. Before they move on, Engine reminds him to put his gloves to use, reduce, reuse, recycle, and go find the woman. While the cleaners engage the aberrant beasts in the harsh desert of Penta, Tom calmly announces that she's starting the recording. The first creature they face is massive and scorpion-like, armored in a thick shell that gleams under the sun. Its pincer movements and curled tail make its attack style obvious, deadly precision with both ends. As chaos unfolds, the cleaners launch into coordinated battle. One of them drives a sharp strike straight through a beast's skull while Rio deflects a whipping tail with expert timing. She counters with a swift jab of her scissors, slashing deep into the beast's body before springing into the air. Gaining height, she flips midair several times to build momentum and hurls her scissors down like a spear. The blade cuts through the monster, slicing off its stinger in a single clean arc. The severed tail spins wildly through the air, slicing across the battlefield before it crashes into another giant beast nearby. That second beast, struck without warning, bellows in rage. Zanka watches it whirl toward him and yells that he had nothing to do with it, but the creature is already charging, furious and blind to reason. Zanka spins his jagged love stick with flair, preparing to face the oncoming beast. As it charges, roaring with fury, he scoffs and tells it to quiet down, too loud for his taste. The creature lashes out with a barrage of stinger strikes, but Zanka dances between each one with nimble precision. Even when the beast thrusts its tail in a powerful, piercing attack, he sidesteps and surges forward. In a swift motion, he jams his weapon into its tail, then delivers a crushing blow to its head. The retractable spikes of his jinki release and bury themselves into the creature's face, and within seconds, its head erupts in a burst of force. Zanka's job is done. But before he can even catch his breath, another beast lumbers toward him. He spins to face it, only to see a shadow descending from above. Its engine, landing hard on Breaker and unleashing his powerful 8-tier skill. In tandem, Rio and Zanuck eliminate their own targets with swift, decisive strikes. As the dust begins to settle, one final aberrant beast creeps forward, the last threat standing. Engine pauses, surprised he missed it, then steps aside with a calm nod, telling Rudo it's his turn now. That's when the young prodigy charges in, storming the battlefield with intensity. In his hands is a broken keyboard, which he channels his power into, turning the shattered object into a weapon pulsing with deadly energy. Far away in the scorching desert, a lone woman pauses as a scent catches her attention. The dry wind shifts and she narrows her eyes, recognizing the familiar trace in the air. She wonders aloud if someone is finally coming for her. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, Rudo hunches over his broken keyboard, typing furiously. With a decisive press of the enter key, the device sparks to life. The detached keys shoot out like precision missiles, zeroing in on the final aberrant beast. One after another, they strike with brutal force until the creature collapses, fully destroyed. Rudo, not holding back, glares at the fallen foe, hurls a crude insult under his breath, and stamps a mark onto its back that reads "F you." The anger still simmering, he turns toward the first beast he had taken down earlier and flips it off, eyes burning with fierce satisfaction. As the defeated beast finally collapses into the dust, far off in the desert, the mysterious woman of the Forbidden Zone slowly smiles. The connection is subtle but undeniable. Back on the battlefield, Rudo, breath heavy and body drained, stands amid the fading chaos. The wind kicks up, blasting sand into his eyes. He groans, rubbing them as they sting. Engine's voice cuts through the silence, noting that the emergence of so many scorpion-like beasts suggests a massive layer of buried trash beneath the sands, a grim sign of what lies below. Nearby, Follow shouts at Tom, urging her to hold off on filming until it's safe. She shrugs, saying she just didn't want to forget later. Wasn't it his job to protect her anyway? Though he sighs, he still warns her to stay sharp. Suddenly, through the settling sandstorm, a dark silhouette appears. Rudo squints toward it, unsettled by the approach of a lone figure from the haze. His mind races, unsure of what he's seeing. But before he can fully react, Delman jumps in from behind with a loud, casual, "There you are," making Rudo flinch. Only then does he realize it's just his teammates. Nothing to fear, at least for now. Tamsi comments on the dense wall of sand that nearly swept Rudo away, shaking his head at how easily they could have lost him in that chaos. Delman, still catching his breath, notes how impressive Rudo looked out there, regretting that he didn't witness the moment himself. Tamsi offers a knowing grin, assuring him there'll be plenty more to see if he just sticks closer next time. Delman opens his mouth to retort, but Tamsi cuts him off with a smirk, reminding him not to trail so far behind. Rudo, meanwhile, lets out a small breath of relief, thinking maybe, for once, Delman had actually been a bit useful. But then, something changes. he notices a strange tremble in Delman's stance. Turning, he realizes both Delman and Tamsi are frozen in place, eyes locked on something behind him. Following their gaze, Rudo turns around and sees her. The woman steps out of the receding sand cloud, walking with unsteady steps but an undeniable presence. Her voice is calm and certain as she stops before them, softly saying she knew it, like a truth finally confirmed. She asks whether they all really came just to see her, referring to herself in third person, as Amo. Her name hangs in the air. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Jabber is seen discussing the location of the Forbidden Zone, Penta, with his superior. But the man corrects him, it's not that one. As he stares at the television screen with a sharpened gaze, a new thread begins to tighten in the background. They had been told that if they ventured deep enough, they'd find exactly what they were looking for. And now, the moment feels surreal as the woman finally steps clear of the shifting sand. Tamsi, squinting through the haze, asks when she had even gotten there. Delman, still unsettled, admits he couldn't believe he hadn't sensed her at all despite the poor visibility. Just then, Engine and the rest of the team catch up. Engine wonders aloud if this woman might be the one they were searching for, though Zanka remains skeptical. This all seems a little too convenient. Rio, calm but curious, notes that she doesn't seem hostile so far, suggesting maybe they could simply ask for directions. She calls out and asks if the woman has seen anyone moving between this world and the heavens. Zanuck raises a brow, surprised by how blunt she is with such a strange person. The woman doesn't answer right away. But then she stops, looks at them and calmly confirms that yes, she is that person. Rio murmurs that this must be the one they've been seeking. Engine nods, noting they might have gotten lucky, and suggests they hear her out before doing anything else. But just as he begins to speak further, the woman breaks into a cough. She mutters that the air here reeks and is rough on her lungs. So, if they want to talk, she says they'd best follow her to her place, where they won't even need their masks. Zanuck eyes the woman warily, bluntly asking why she's maskless in such toxic air. She brushes it off, her home's just nearby, then casually asks if they're coming. Rio glances at Engine, quietly wondering if they should let her lead. Engine doesn't flinch. If there's danger, he wants to face it head-on. If a fight breaks out, he'll handle it. When Rio double-checks, Engine grins, he adapts to anything. Soon, they enter Amo's home, an odd book-crammed space where silent, ghost-like figures drift. Rudo steps in, and freezes. Engine is already on his knees, dazed, an unnatural liquid spilling from his mouth. His body begins to slump. Whatever Amo did, it struck instantly. The liquid keeps flowing until Engine collapses, and Rudo just stands there, stunned as calm turns to chaos. Suddenly, time begins to rewind. The hands of a clock spin in reverse until they strike 3 o'clock, pulling the scene back to 1 hour earlier. The group is now seen following Amo through the wasteland, eventually stopping before a towering structure. They stand in awe before an enormous staircase leading up to a massive mansion. Engine calls it a castle, overwhelmed by its sheer scale. Zanuck admits he had seen the structure from a distance but never imagined someone actually lived there. Tom, equally stunned, murmurs that she had no idea something like this existed deep within Penta. Someone had even told her to take note of it. Rudo looks up at the lofty building and muses silently that it almost looks like it touches the sky. Amo, already a few steps ahead, calls them over warmly and gestures for them to come inside. Engine and Rudo are too caught off guard to respond. As they enter, Gree mutters to himself that everything about this place feels suspicious. Amo, unfazed, apologizes for the mess in the living room and says she'll take them straight to her personal quarters instead. She then suggests they remove their masks. There's no stench here after all. And wasn't it a bit rude, she teases, to come all this way to talk to someone without even showing their faces? The cleaners have no good answer, exchanging uncertain glances, and end up silently trailing her to her room. Amo beams with delight as the cleaners finally remove their masks, her eyes lighting up as she calls them adorable, stylish, and surprisingly elegant. She says it's such a joy to see their real faces at last. Tom quietly resumes recording, noting the room's unexpected luxury, but Gree stops her. No need to log everything. As the group scans the space, Rudo notices an odd assortment of objects, far too many for such a remote desert hideout. His curiosity stirs, wondering how it all ended up here. Amo snaps her fingers, her tone firm now, asking what they want. Rudo looks to Engine, who gives a silent nod. Taking the lead, Rudo explains they came to ask about someone rumored to travel between heaven and this world. Someone Amo might have seen. She listens, then grins slyly, suggesting they first discuss something more important, the kind of people they like. The group falls silent, unsure how to respond. Amo cheerfully explains she values scent over looks, then leans in to sniff each of them, finally declaring Delman her favorite. Rudo gapes at Delman in disbelief, even grabbing his shoulder in confusion. Engine tries to clarify, does she want them to share their preferences as payment for the information? Amo looks puzzled by the word payment, so Engine rephrases. They came seeking answers about reaching heaven, and her condition seems odd. But they're willing to play along. At that, Amo's mood shifts. She falls dead silent for a beat, then erupts, fury flashing in her eyes. What do they mean by that, she demands. Her voice trembles with emotion as she accuses them of pretending to care when they clearly don't. Were they really only here to get something out of her? She shouts that she had been so excited, genuinely happy to have guests from the outside, but now it feels like they're just using her. As she fumes, barely holding back tears, Engine quietly mutters that she's completely lost it. Amo, voice trembling with a mix of pain and fury, asks if they're just like the others, only showing up when they need something. She scoffs, saying even if it were a lie, just hearing someone say they wanted to see her would have made her happy. Engine, awkwardly sincere, apologizes and admits maybe he should have just said that, confessing he's interested in her. But Amo snaps, screaming at him not to lie. With fire in her eyes, she declares that he's no longer her type. Engine, irritated now, thinks what a pain, and instead of backtracking he bluntly suggests he'll speak honestly too. Maybe she could throw on some clothes because he doesn't even know where to look. That hits a nerve. Amo, eyes wide, begins to tremble, then erupts again, shouting that Engine is the worst of them all. He's one of those men, the kind who care about what a woman wears. That's it, she proclaims, their friendship is over. With her boots glowing, seemingly serving as her jinky, she powers up as Engine mutters bitterly that she's definitely a giver. Meanwhile, Rudo's eyes widen, he's noticed something. A strange chill runs through him as he realizes the same symbol etched on her boots matches the one on his gloves. Their bodies react, hers with rising rage, his with stunned recognition. Just then, Amo coldly says she's done and leaves the rest to the big guy, Delman. Without hesitation, Delman points something at Engine, who stares in confusion, unable to process the sudden shift. And with that, the timeline catches up and they return to the present. Engine lies motionless on the floor. The cleaners turn to Delman in shock. Rudo tense as he demands to know what he did, but Delman's distant eyes and blank face say he's not truly present. Unease building, Rudo shifts focus to Amo, accusing her of tampering with Delman. Is she a giver too? He points to the symbol on her shoes, matching the mark on his gloves, and asks who she really is. Amo only smiles, tilting her head sweetly as she dodges the question and asks what kind of person Rudo likes. Silence falls. She looks around, feigning innocence, and softly insists communication is key. How can they grow closer if she's the only one speaking? Her tone is playful, but something about it chills the room. With a gentle smile that hides something darker, she adds that people love talking about themselves and if everyone joined in, it'd be fun. They're her long-awaited guests, everyone but the killjoys. But with no one engaging, she starts to doubt the point. If they won't play along, what's the fun? Zanka finally steps forward, breaking the silence. He says he understands now. Only those who entertain her twisted game are truly heard. Those who don't just ruin her mood. Well then, he says she better hear him loud and clear, calling her fugly, sharp and without hesitation. He declares her weird talk is over. Whatever trick she pulled on Engine, he doesn't care if it's about heaven or anything else. If she's going to act hostile, he'll crush her without a second thought. Amo stands stunned, her expression twisting as she stammers out a wounded response. Why would he say something so cruel when she hadn't even done anything? She clutches her chest as tears fill her eyes, the pain in her voice suddenly all too real. But rage quickly replaces sorrow. Before anyone can react, Delman charges at Zanka from behind. Zanka senses the attack just in time, leaping away as Delman's fists crash into the ground where he stood. Confused, Zanka shouts, asking what Delman's doing. They're on the same side. Then realization hits him. This must be Amo's power, some form of emotional manipulation. But before he can finish the thought, Delman erupts in fury, shouting how dare Zanka say such things. He says Zanka hurt his girl's feelings and vows that no matter who it is, even a fellow ally, he won't forgive anyone who hurts her. Delman declares that Amo is the reason he fights, she is his great cause, and he vows to protect her no matter what, making Amo blush with gleeful excitement. But Tamsi immediately argues that Zanka's assumption is wrong. Delman isn't under any manipulation, those are his true feelings. Tamsi insists he knows because he's been with Delman all this time. Gree, still confused, admits he doesn't get any of it and asks what exactly they're saying. Amo pauses, thinking, then her eyes light up with an idea and she grins widely. She turns to the cleaners and asks if they hadn't figured it out already. Delman has always been her fan. Rudo and Gree are stunned, both asking since when. Tamsi disagrees again, saying Delman would never hurt his allies just because he liked someone. But Amo counters that Tamsi simply doesn't understand, because for her sake, Delman would gladly toss anyone aside. Right then, Delman's jinky clicks and begins transforming. Amo cheerfully says there's no helping it, she hasn't done anything wrong, she just wanted to talk. As the device fully forms, it reveals itself to be a high-pressure water hose sprayer, which Delman dramatically calls his great dumbbell. Tamsi, clearly fed up, mutters that they only came here to gather information, but this has spiraled into a complete mess. Rudo, watching everything unfold, feels the tension rising and quietly panics, wondering why every situation they're in always ends up in a fight. He curses himself for letting things get to this point, until a voice bluntly tells him it really is his fault. Rudo turns sharply to see who said it. The words hit Rudo hard, the accusation echoing deep within him. He's thrown into the past, back to the days when people sneered at him for being the son of criminals, calling him filthy, warning that he'd only contaminate those around him. Their cruel chant, "Filth to the pit," rings in his ears like a curse that never left. In the present, Amo's voice rises once more, light but laced with something colder. She says with a cheerful smile that the truth is, there's another cleaner among them who's a fan of hers. All she had wanted was a fun, open conversation. That's all. But if anyone disrupted that joy, well, maybe Rudo would be the one to pay for it. Her tone stays sweet, but Rudo's face drains of color as dread coils in his chest. What he's witnessing, what he's feeling now, shakes him to his core. Rudo suddenly finds himself surrounded by the guards of heaven, their intimidating presence paralyzing him with fear. As one of them steps closer to seize him, he nervously protests, reminding them they're disciples. Why are they even here? But the disciple doesn't respond, only stares with an unreadable gaze before reaching out and grabbing him. Just then, Rudo jolts back to the present, gasping as Tamsi yells at him for zoning out. Turns out it was Tamsi who pulled him back, literally, right before Delman's water blast could hit. The powerful stream crashes into the wall, shattering it under immense pressure. Delman scolds Tamsi for dodging, calling it watering instead of attacking. Tamsi, annoyed, explains to the group that Delman's jinky stems from his past, a wish to grow plants. His water causes whatever it hits to swell, feeding moisture directly into the target. And since human bodies soak up water like sponges, it makes them expand grotesquely, ballooning from within. Tamsi turns to the others and asks what they think happens when someone absorbs too much water, then answers himself, they explode. Meanwhile, Tom is already by Engine's side, tending to him. Zanka tries to process what just happened. Engine was hit hard from behind, so how did Delman manage it without anyone noticing? Tamsi explains that Delman's nozzle changes with use, and this time it switched to a silent mode, making the attack completely undetectable. Still, he points out, Delman's never aimed at a person before. This had to be her doing. Before he can finish, Rio interrupts, not fully understanding his point, and decides to handle Delman herself. Calmly, she approaches, saying she'll remove whatever's troubling him. Zanka warns her not to go alone. Delman's dangerous now, and only teamwork can keep them safe. As he speaks, Rio remembers something Amo said earlier, that one of them is secretly her fan. The thought rattles her. While Zanka keeps talking, she whispers to herself that right now, she can't trust anyone. Suddenly, Zanka shouts, someone's right in front of her. Rio looks up just as Delman's jinky targets her, pressure maxed out. A deafening blast tears through one of Amo's walls, rubble crashing down. Amo, oddly impressed by the power, quickly begs Delman to stop before he destroys everything, warning she'll make him repair it if he keeps going. The scene cuts to Rio, collapsed and dazed, mumbling that it was way too close. Zanka urges her to stay alert, but Amo, gleeful and mocking, taunts them all for failing to tell friend from foe. She reminds them that, like she said before, if only they'd just talked with her, they could have had so much fun. Discussing their loves, she insists, was the first step toward peace, though Tamsi snaps that she's insane. He turns to Ruto, trying to shake him back to his senses, but is startled by how far gone he looks, mumbling about the surface and staring blankly as if the chaos around him isn't real. Tam watches him with growing concern, baffled, but Ruto calls him a disciple of heaven and wonders if he's already made it back there. Zanuck, fed up, asks what nonsense he's spouting, then pauses as a familiar scent reaches him, a scent that feels oddly nostalgic. Amo turns thoughtful and asks the group how they think memories are formed. Is it what we see, what we hear, or who we're with? For her, it's scent. Smell alone ties her to memories more than anything. So, she turns to Rudo and tells him that if talking about love is too hard, maybe he should just try smelling something nostalgic and pretend, just for a moment, to be someone in love. Right then, Amo's form morphs into Chiwa, and Rudo freezes, eyes wide in disbelief as the girl he once loved stands before him. That scent, she says, is her motif. It's unique for everyone, but once they inhale it, they become deeply protective of her. Then, pausing mid-thought, she catches herself and realizes she's just revealed more than she intended. That is, Zanka calmly reaches for a gas mask. He voices his realization. Amo scent tricks people into believing she's the one they love. The moment they inhale it, their mind fills in the rest. Tamsi catches on instantly, and both he and Zanka strap on their masks. Zanka chimes in, thanking Amo for unknowingly giving away her secret, and reminds everyone that wearing masks is all it takes. Tamsi reflects that memories tied to people we love aren't always joyful. Sometimes they're bitter, twisted with regret or pain, and if someone harbored resentment toward their beloved, Amo could end up paying the price. With urgency, he and Zanka agree they need to neutralize the woman of the Forbidden Zone before it's too late. Amo snaps at them, shouting that they're fools and pests, calling them insane for not listening. She had said clearly that her scent only carried memories of happy times. Meanwhile, Rudo stands trembling, his fury mounting. In her Chiwa form, she accuses him of abandoning her and declares she'll never forgive him. Still in Chiwa's form, Amo gently insists she cherish the stuffed toy Rudo gave her. The memory hits, him nervously pressing it to his face before handing it over and fleeing. The joy resurfaces, stronger now, leaving him confused. Suddenly, two disciples drag Chiwa away. She calls out to Ruto, and unaware it's Amo in disguise, he reacts instinctively, slamming Zanka and Tamsi aside. Stunned, Zanka yells in disbelief, while Rudo declares he's no longer weak, he has power to protect what matters. Rio steps up, promising to protect Amo, followed by Fowla and Delman, who also vow to fight Zanka and Tamsi. Tom watches in shock. Zanka sighs, realizing they've misjudged everything. It's too late now. Though he never wanted to use his Jinki on allies, he sees no other option. In the heart of the wreckage, a woman gazes at a delicate bloom sprouting from the debris and marvels that something so beautiful could grow from a place so forgotten. Calling out softly to Delman, she thanks him, saying that because of his efforts, she's finally seen a real flower. But Delman, looking somber yet determined, replies that a single flower isn't enough. He vows to fill the entire house with them. In his eyes, that woman is his wife, though in truth he's staring at Amo, caught in her illusion. Around her stand the others, Ruto, Rio, follow, all positioned protectively at her side, loyal to the woman from the Forbidden Zone. Amo, quietly observing, admits she doesn't even know their names, yet here they are, all acting like fans. She reflects that this might be the limit of her following, and still, Tamsi and Zanka remain determined to stop her. Tamsi steps forward, composed and resolute, and calmly asks each of his companions to bear what he's about to unleash. As he speaks, he unrolls a peculiar weapon, a stick with a rope winder affixed to its end. Power flares subtly as he slams it down, declaring it his Jinki, which he calls Takushin. Tamsi's declaration sends a subtle ripple through the air, but its impact is anything but subtle. The moment his Jinki activates, Delman snaps. Seeing Tamsi and Zanka approach Amo with greed just behind, Delman's vision warps with rage. To him, they're not allies, they're threats to the woman he believes is his wife. Shouting with fury, he calls them bastards and promises that he'll never let anyone hurt her again. Without hesitation, Rudo, Rio, and Follow surge forward at his side, attacking from every direction in perfect sync. But Tamsi, unwavering, swings his rope winder with precision, and in a sudden, controlled explosion of motion, releases a barrage of glowing cords he calls net. The ropes snake through the room with terrifying speed, wrapping tightly around each of the four attackers and yanking them into the air, helpless and bound. Amo stares wide-eyed, stunned by the scene unfolding in her room, now tangled in thread and chaos. Demanding answers, she barks at her protectors, but no help comes. Rio squirms violently, trying to break free, only to cry out in pain. Calmly, Tamsi tells them not to struggle. The more they move, the tighter the ropes get. His tone is quiet but firm, and he offers them an apology they can't afford to accept. Tamsi watches his captured comrades writhe in midair, each movement tightening the ropes that bind them. He hopes the pain might jolt them back to reality, but their vacant expressions remain unchanged. Amo glares at him, calling them cruel, accusing him of experimenting on friends while they suffer. And yet, Tamsi knows the truth. If their devotion to her was real, if their actions were truly their own, they would fight to protect her no matter how much it hurt, even if it meant bleeding out. But none of them resist the ropes, not anymore. Realization sharpens in Amo's eyes as she notices the true nature of Tamsi's tool, a yarn winder. With quiet clarity, Tamsi explains that the device was once used to reel in soft thread. And just like that, he gives the crank a final spin. A sudden shift fills the air, and the threads dance with precision. With solemn finality, Tamsi announces that the fan reeling is complete, along with the capture of the woman who had thrown everything into chaos. Amo, now tangled and lifted into the air like the others, hangs motionless, her influence finally neutralized. Inside Amo's home, Tamsi's threads coil tightly around her, suspending her upside down in midair. With firm resolve, he commands her to return everyone to normal at once. Zanka, still processing the pace of it all, admits it feels surreal, awkward even, that things ended so swiftly, especially without him needing to lift a finger. But Tamsi dismisses that, saying the moment they realized they were up against more than one enemy, the mental burden had already begun. Even Zanka calling her fugly, Tamsi adds, had its tactical effect. Meanwhile, in the background, Gree approaches Tom, his relief subtle as he notices her gas mask still on. When he checks on Engine's condition, she replies with concern, still unresponsive. She'd placed the mask on him just in case. Gree nods, urgency creeping into his voice. They have to get him to the medics immediately. Tamsi glances back at them, clearly unsettled despite the victory. Amo begins writhing in the air, whining about the pain, grumbling that she hadn't been treated this roughly in a long time. With a glare at Tamsi, she calls him heartless, the worst of them all, before her voice cracks and she suddenly breaks into sobs, tears spilling as her bravado finally crumbles. As Amo sobs for help, something shifts in the air. Suddenly, Follow, Rio, Rudo, and Delman stir back to life, energy surging through them. Zanka, confident just moments earlier that Tamsi's bindings would hold them tight, watches in disbelief as the threads begin to snap, one after another. Somehow, her desperate cries have awakened something inside them. Amo, still suspended, screams that what they've done is beyond forgiveness. Her voice rises in fury as she vows not to let a single one of them walk away alive once she's free. Her defenders tear through the bindings, breaking loose as she continues to cry and rage like a wounded queen. Tamsi exhales slowly, tired but calm, and mutters that it's enough. Clearly, she enjoyed playing victim far too much. With measured hands, he raises his jinky and slams it into the floor. The moment it hits, his threads spring into motion, spinning and drilling into the ground. Delman flinches, confused by the tremor and the sound, then watches wide-eyed as a giant spool winds downward, burrowing through the very core of Amo's room, tearing it open like a whirlpool. Zanka scrambles to the edge, hooking himself in place with his love stick, and when he peers into the swirling pit below, he's stunned into silence by the sheer magnitude of what Tamsi has just unleashed. Their teammates crash hard at the bottom of the pit, limbs splayed and groaning from the fall. Zanka stares in horror and mutters that this was overkill. Without hesitation, he leaps down after them, clearly shaken by the sight of their crumpled forms. Tamsi shrugs it off, insisting everything's fine now. But when Zanka lands and sees their allies battered from the fall, he can't accept that. Above, Amo dangles over the edge, still crying, though her sobs now feel theatrical. She laments that this is what happens when people don't speak honestly. No matter how they pretend, their true selves always surface. Below, Rudo grimaces in pain, a sharp fragment lodged in his side. Amo, still hanging, mutters that since Tamsi's the worst, it's only natural his friends might die. She laughs, claiming they're simply incompatible with her. Zanka glares at Tamsi, furious, but Tamsi calmly asks if he's forgotten something. Zanka hesitates. Tamsi reminds him that Remlin drew protective charms on them. Right then, Engine stands tall behind Amo, unharmed, confirming it. They're all fine. Without a word, he gently removes Amo's boots. Back at the cleaners' headquarters, the atmosphere is calm but quietly tense. One of the staff remarks, hoping the group has safely gathered the intel near the border. That voice belongs to Corvus, the head of the cleaners, who stands beside Semiu. She sits silently, eyes fixed on Rudo's file. Though she softly assures there shouldn't be any problems, especially with the team members assigned, there's a hint of hesitation in her voice. Corvus picks up on it instantly. He notes her unease and wonders aloud if it has something to do with what's inside Rudo. Something is clearly weighing on her, so he gently asks what it was she saw in Rudo the first time they met. Meanwhile, back at Amo's wrecked home, Engine crouches beside her, still holding one of her boots. He mutters how annoying it would be to wear only one sock, only to stop mid-thought, startled as he realizes there's no sock at all. Engine stares at the boot, confused. Amo, still restrained but frantic, demands it back, urgently and repeatedly. He agrees with a sigh, but she insists he must not touch it, warning the scent must remain intact. That boot, she claims, holds the scent of someone important. Curious, Engine lowers his mask and sniffs it, then recoils, coughing at the awful smell. He can't believe anyone wore it, yet oddly he feels fine. Amo screams in fury, calling him the worst and demanding the boot back. Above, Gree wonders how long it's been since Engine recovered, still stunned, his ruptured organs healed. Tom recalls how he faked sleep during treatment just to ask her a favor. Still holding the boot, Engine calmly says he'll return it, if Amo disables her power and restores things. She mumbles that with only one foot, the scent is incomplete, and without the full fragrance, no one could protect her and everything would return to how it was. Below, Delman wakes up groggily, asking what happened. Tamsi sighs in relief, thankful Remlin's charm worked. He praises her as Delman slowly takes in the chaotic scene around him. Now that Delman's clear-headed, Tamsi calmly explains that Amo had deceived them all using a scent that stirred vivid memories of joyful times with people they once loved. That illusion made them mistake her for someone precious. As the truth sinks in, Delman's eyes drop in quiet disbelief, crushed by the realization that the person he cherished wasn't really there. In the background, Zanka watches in silence, thinking just how vile the girl's ability truly is. For those who've lost someone, the memories of happiness can become even stronger, and even after the illusion is shattered, the truth waiting behind it is often colder and far more painful. Engine casually tosses a rock into the pit, signaling everyone to put their masks back on. As he hands Amo her boot, she snatches it back with a grumble, clearly annoyed. Once the team regathers, Zanka looks to Engine and asks what their next move should be. Leaving the girl behind now feels reckless, she may be dangerous. Engine pauses, weighing their options. She's just a girl, he says, and her power lies entirely in her jinki. He doesn't want to strip her of it. Instead, he hopes she might learn not to use it to hurt others. Amo, still sulking, moans about how terrible she feels. With her house now in ruins, she whines about whether they feel even a sliver of guilt. But her manipulations haven't gone unnoticed. The weight of what happened is written all over Delman, Follow, and Rio. Zanka grows visibly irritated by her victim act. At the same time, Rudo quietly removes his mask. Zanka notices Rudo and asks what's happening. At Cleaner's HQ, Semiu tells Corvus Rudo is different. Not just his jinki or gloves, but something deeper. At the scene, Rudo walks toward Amo. She smirks, teasing he's fallen for her scent. He says nothing, just punches her in the face. Gasps follow, even Amo is stunned. His eyes burn with fury as he strikes again and again, blood spilling as the air turns heavy. Semiu's voice overlays, something dark is awakening in him, something dangerous. The others rush to stop him, but he keeps swinging. Semiu warns, this power could end the world. A living curse. The cleaners shout Rudo's name, voices urgent, begging him to stop, but he doesn't hear them. His fists keep flying, breath ragged, rage consuming him. Amo lies broken beneath him, her face unrecognizable, blood pooling. Gree steps in, trembling, insisting it's enough. They've found a way to counter her power. He reminds Rudo she's a girl, hoping to spark some restraint. But Rudo fires back coldly, so what? Should he stay silent just because she's female? Even after she killed their friends? No, he growls. You can't forgive that. Gree tries to clarify, saying it just doesn't feel right beating someone who's down. But Rudo snaps, she's not helpless. She's a giver who twisted their minds and hearts, caused all their pain. That's why she deserved it. Silence follows, heavy and stunned. Then Engine steps in, calm and steady, asking, if that's truly how Rudo feels, what about the information? The question cuts through Rudo's fury. His breath slows. Reality crashes in. Behind him, Amo lies bloodied and still. Rudo looks up at Engine, guilt creeping in. Engine quietly pulls him aside and tells Tom to help Amo. She rushes to her. Outside the room, Rudo and Engine sit in silence, drained. Rudo is sweating, his breath shallow, while Engine leans back with his eyes closed, wordless. The silence gnaws at Rudo, and he finally asks why he isn't saying anything. Engine responds calmly that there's no need. Rudo already knows where he went wrong. He let his emotions take control and forgot his purpose. Rudo lowers his gaze, unable to deny it. He confesses that back on the surface, he used to suppress his anger, always told to endure no matter what insults came his way. But once he was cast into the pit, he began to believe that restraint only led to more loss. He had thought he was different now that he'd grown, but the moment he lashed out in rage, he became the same person he used to be, the one who let his inner darkness consume others before ever learning to hold it back. Whether on the surface or in the depths, nothing had changed. He hadn't changed. And that truth cuts deeper than anything else. Rudo clenches his fists and curses himself, calling himself a useless brat who's only grown taller, not better. His frustration hangs heavy in the air until Engine suddenly breaks the silence with an unexpected comment. He says he wants a good woman. Rudo blinks, confused, as Engine elaborates, saying he dreams of someone smarter than him, with a killer body, sexy and open-minded. Was that so unreasonable? He adds that he's not into women who are childish or a hassle to deal with. Rudo stares at him, unsure where this is going, but Engine just smirks and explains. If a woman heard him say all that, she'd definitely be furious. And that's the issue with him. He doesn't know how to hide what he really thinks. It's one of the many things he still needs to fix about himself. Even as an adult, he admits there's still a lot he hasn't figured out. What matters, he says, is recognizing that truth and working on it. That same awareness, he points out, is probably dawning on Rudo now. And that's okay, because realizing your faults just means you've still got room to grow. The words strike a chord in Rudo, who sits quietly reflecting. Engine suggests they both apologize later, and the two remain in silence, lost in thought. Meanwhile, inside the room, Tom kneels beside Amo and begins tending to her injuries, gently apologizing for how things turned out and asking sincerely for forgiveness. She takes off her mask, offering a warm smile, saying she'd be happy to sit and chat with her anytime, even gossip a little if she's up for it. Amo stays quiet at first, then softly says Tom would make a wonderful mother. Tom laughs kindly at the remark, and Amo goes on to speak about her own parents, how her mother had been a good person, and how meeting her first love was all thanks to both her mom and dad. She adds that the boots she cherishes were made during that time. More than that, she says she once saw an angel, a being who crossed between the heavens and their world. Tom freezes at those words, the phrase sparking recognition. Realizing Amo may have just revealed something crucial, she immediately asks what exactly she meant by seeing an angel that crossed into their world. Amo lifts her eyes, drifting into a distant childhood memory. As a small, curious girl, she once pointed excitedly at a black and white bird in the sky, calling it cute. Her mother, composed and distant, told her that such a bird could never love her back, and that she should stay quiet. Confused, Amo's emotions flared. She yelled at the bird, insisting she hated it, calling it silly, stupid, repeating her anger over and over. Her mother watched, then gave her a strange look and softly called her Miss Blackbird. Taking Amo's tiny hand, she led her down a narrow, empty alley. When Amo asked where they were going, her mother replied gently, it was a place where everyone would love her. At the end of the alley, a quiet carriage waited, with a silent man beside it. Wide-eyed, Amo asked who he was. Her mother just smiled, saying she was truly happy for her. If not for that man, no one would have ever loved Amo. Now, she said, Amo could finally be happy. But the little girl never understood what those words really meant. She just looked at the man who was staring at her intently. His expression lit up the moment she smiled and asked with childlike hope if he would love her a lot. Beaming, she ran toward him, brimming with joy, while he turned to her mother and handed her a small pouch, heavy with money. Oblivious to the transaction, Amo continued smiling, unaware that at such a tender age she had just been sold. Climbing eagerly into the carriage beside him, she asked where they were going. The man told her they were headed to a special house, one that was just for the two of them. No one else would be around. That place, he said, would be their new home. After a long journey across the desert, they finally reached a towering house that loomed high against the sky. Amo stared up in amazement, struck by its size. The man warned her that leaving was out of the question. The world outside was far too dangerous for her now. As they stepped inside, Amo thought it was a lovely home and wished she could show it to her mother. But he told her that wouldn't be possible anymore. Her mother had already chosen to distance herself, and from this point on, this house would be her new world. His expression shifted strangely as he put a finger to his mouth and smiled, saying from now on, he'd be the one to feed her, always. That marked the beginning of a new life for her. He handed her a photo album filled with countless pictures, brought her generous meals every day, and dressed her in outfits as she continued to grow. When she curiously asked if all of it came from his work, he replied proudly that it did. He was a salaried employee now, so they no longer had to worry about things like food or clothes. But then his mood suddenly turned. He fell silent, his cheer collapsing into distress. Despite everything he did, he muttered, people still hated him. He didn't understand why. On the surface, he appeared normal. Wasn't that what made it creepy, he asked? Even though he held an important role at work, it didn't seem to matter. As his breakdown faded and he noticed Amo watching him, the man waved it off with a forced smile, suggesting they could talk about that another time. Crawling toward her, he gently called her name and reminded her that the room they were in had once been built for rituals. That same ritual, he said, was something they must continue, together, always. Clutching at her clothes, Amo admitted softly that her heart would pound every time they did it. It was difficult for her, too difficult sometimes. Taken aback, the man only smiled, saying that what she felt was the sign of deep love. Confused but intrigued, she asked what that meant. He brought up the storybook he had given her, the one where a girl's heart raced when she fell in love with a prince. Slowly drawing closer, he told her she was feeling the same. She was in love with him. Amo didn't fully understand what those words stirred inside her, but she smiled anyway, thinking maybe this really was love. In truth, she didn't realize she was being used. He kept talking, noting how sweet she smelled. She lay there in silence, staring blankly at the ceiling as he got up and walked across the room to collect his boots. Her gaze followed him without judgment, her smile faint but present. Just because he said so, she accepted it as love, her first love. So this was what it felt like. But then the door swung open with a loud creak. Though Amo hadn't moved from the bed, both she and the man turned sharply in surprise. Standing in the doorway was a masked figure who casually stepped inside with a simple, calm greeting. "Excuse me." As the masked man peeks through the doorway, it's clear he's not alone. More figures follow, stepping silently into the room, their presence drawing Amo's puzzled gaze. She blinks at them, unsure, and quietly asks who they are. The man beside her falters, unable to answer. The masked intruders move with intent, scanning the space like they're looking for something specific. Tension rises instantly. Furious, the man jumps to his feet, demanding an explanation for their intrusion. This house, he yells, belongs to him and Amo. How dare they storm in like this? His voice shakes with rage as he draws back, activating the jinki embedded in his boots. Sparks flash beneath him as he threatens to kill them on the spot, claiming he'll kick every last one of them to death. But the masked figures remain calm. One of them locks eyes on the symbol glowing faintly on his boots. Then, in a blur, they make their move. With blinding speed, one darts along the room's edge and, before the man can even react, delivers a crushing punch straight to his side, sending shockwaves through the air. The force of the blow instantly snuffs the light from the man's eyes as his body crashes to the floor with a thud. Amo stares in shock, paralyzed by the scene unfolding before her. She doesn't move, doesn't speak, just sits there as one of the masked intruders kneels and slips the jinky boots off his unconscious body. Then another approaches Amo, silently observing her with an unreadable expression behind the mask. She stays frozen, unsure what to expect. The first masked one walks over, raises a hand, and the boots are passed forward. He offers them to her, saying they suit her better, that what's missing inside her heart, the boots will somehow fill. Cover the hollow that's been there for so long. Her hand instinctively presses against her chest, something stirring in the place where emptiness had taken root. Then slowly she reaches forward. The masked figure lowers the boots in front of her with a quiet care, then turns without another word. The two of them head toward a large opening in the wall, its jagged edges revealing the world outside. One of them comments that it seems to be the closest point after all. He extends a hand and the other steps beneath his cloak. Together they stand, silent and still, as Amo watches wide-eyed, heart uncertain. The masked figure turns to her one last time, voice calm but firm. He'll lend her the boots, but she must use them wisely. The weight of his words presses into her chest. Overwhelmed, she asks who he is, voice trembling. Then her eyes widen, wings unfurl from his back. Before she can react, the two leap into the sky, wind whipping around her. Tears spill as she watches, breath caught at the beauty of their flight. Are they angels? She wonders. Suddenly, they dive sharply and she lurches forward in fear, only to see them rise again, soaring past her with effortless grace. She stands now, eyes fixed on the sky as they fade into the distance. Behind her, movement. Her captor rises and steps forward, his shadow falling over her. Still lost in awe, she turns, voice soft, calling him Mister. She asks if he saw them too, maybe they were real angels, not just drawings. But the moment shatters as he barks her name, yanking her back to reality. Only then does she remember his injury and gently asks how he's doing, only to be slammed violently into the wall. His face contorted with fury, he screams that the jinky is his. He accuses her of stealing the boots and hurls a cruel insult, demanding if she truly thought someone like her had any right to touch them. Frozen, Amo stares, unable to process the betrayal. Then his boot crashes into her again and again, each kick punctuated with the word thief. Over and over, he yells, asking how many more times he must teach her this lesson. But as she curls under the assault, something stirs deep within. Normally, she feels nothing, empty as if all her senses have long since dulled, but this time is different. There's a strange sound pulsing from her chest, unfamiliar and confusing. Is it because of the boots? She remembers the masked one's words, that they were meant for her, that they would fill what was missing in her heart. Her hands tighten around them. If that's true, then they rightfully belong to her. Gritting her teeth, she draws in a breath and mutters with fierce resolve that she will never give them to anyone. Back in the present, Rudo returns to the room, his steps hesitant as he approaches Tom and Amo. Tom's expression shifts immediately, concern clear in his eyes. Rudo pauses, unsure how to begin, but before he can speak, Fo calls out, asking where he's been. Amo has already started talking, sharing the very information Rudo was searching for. The news stuns him, and he listens closely as Amo continues unveiling her story. Her voice is steady but heavy with memory as she recounts how the man she lived with would suddenly shift into a darker version of himself and beat her without warning. Holding the boots tightly, she recalls how the jinky responded to her touch. Something that should have been impossible, as jinky are meant to be bound to their true user. Rudo frowns, troubled, wondering aloud how it could react to someone else. Amo swallows hard, nerves flickering in her voice, but she offers a quiet thought. Maybe it was never his in the first place. She admits she doesn't fully understand what a jinky really is, but insists that the boots feel right with her. More than anything, she says, they fill something that had been missing inside her for so long. It's like an old battery finally sparking back to life. That's what it felt like. So wouldn't it be fair, she asks gently, if the boots now belong to her? But suddenly the man laughs coldly, stepping in close with a sneer. He scoffs at her claim, declaring that no one has the right to steal what belongs to someone else, that he snatches the boots from her hands with force, his voice cold as he tells her she clearly doesn't understand the whole she keeps talking about, not on a fundamental level. Amo, confused and hurt, questions what he means. Hadn't he also taken things from others before? Her voice wavers as she tries to reason with him. She had done her best to be a good girl. Even the angel, she says softly, had told her the boots suited her more. So maybe, just maybe, it really is okay for them to be hers. His expression hardens, and he demands to know what her problem is, his grip on the boots tightening. Why wasn't she listening to him anymore? Is she seriously saying she won't obey him now? Amo's face crumples in a mix of pain and confusion. She admits that she doesn't know what's happening to her. So many emotions are churning inside all at once. She's trying to be brave, she says, but something inside her is beginning to break. Restlessness bubbles under her skin, and for the first time she's starting to wonder what it would feel like to do something bad. Still clinging to the boots, her voice softens into a quiet plea. This is her first and last selfish wish, to keep them. Why, she asks, why does he even want them so badly? For a second, he freezes, his gaze locked on the boots in her trembling hands. Then suddenly he roars, repeating that it's simply not possible. Amo's head lowers, her shoulders shaking as fear settles deep into her chest. But even with his angry shouting, Amo doesn't release her grip. He snaps again, asking how many times he has to repeat it. Those boots are his and only his. That should be enough. He says no matter how much she begs, he'll never hand them over. His voice rises with frustration, telling her she's starting to seriously annoy him and demands she let go right now. Just do it already. But something inside Amo cracks. The flood of emotions she can't contain bursts out in a scream. Tears stream down her face as she cries out, voice breaking with anguish, why? That's all she wants to know. Why can't he just listen? Didn't he ever love her? Her words hit something raw, but it only makes him lash out. Enraged, he slams his foot into her stomach. Amo gasps but doesn't let go. Instead, she strikes back, kicking him in the gut. He snarls and grabs her hair, yanking her to the ground. The fight spirals into chaos, both of them clinging to the boots, too consumed by fury and desperation to give in. Their struggle grows more violent, neither willing to release what they both believe is rightfully theirs. In a sudden twist of force and imbalance, the man stumbles. His footing slips as he's flung backward, heading straight toward the large hole in the wall, one he hadn't even noticed until it was too late. As he plunges into the abyss, he stretches a desperate hand toward her, wordlessly pleading for help, but Amo doesn't move. She simply stands there, eyes locked with his as he vanishes from sight. The sound of his body disappearing into the depths below marks the end, and she witnesses every second of it. Standing at the edge of the void, she remains frozen, staring into the silence that follows. Then, without warning, she starts laughing, a strange, hollow sound that rises from a tangled storm of grief, confusion, disbelief, and release. She collapses to her knees, the reality of what just happened crashing in around her, and wonders aloud how it ever came to this. What kind of twisted path had brought them here? Why had she been introduced to that man in the first place? As her gaze falls to the boots resting near her, clarity hits. Her mother had sold her. That was the answer. She had been traded away like something disposable. The realization stings but brings clarity. Still, something feels off. Caught between pain and understanding, she lifts the boots and smiles faintly. All of this, she whispers, came from love. Pressing them to her face, she breathes in his scent. Her first love, the man she once called Mr. She vows to never forget him. In that moment, a dormant spark ignites within her. Power stirs. Gazing at the horizon, she wishes to meet more people, to be loved again. Months after his death, while wandering the desert, Amo sees them once more. The angels returned. As she draws slow lines on the ground with a stone, she casually adds that those same angels had killed someone. Her audience, supporters and cleaners alike, falls silent, every word she says settling over them with quiet weight. Grease stares in disbelief, unable to wrap his head around the idea of angels just appearing. Tom looks on with sympathy, heart aching at how painful her past must have been. Follow voices the question hanging in the air. Were they truly angels or just people from the surface? Xena offers a theory, it might have simply been a giver with wings. Tamsi, however, remains skeptical, suggesting Amo might be delusional, perhaps even unstable. Maybe everything she saw was just a hallucination. Rio shifts the focus to logistics. How had they crossed the boundary? Amo replies without hesitation. They flew using their wings. Still, the mystery lingers. Where did the angel come from? Did it really just vanish into the sky? No one can find a concrete answer. Engine, who's been quietly listening all this time, finally speaks up with a single pointed question. When did these angels return? Amo doesn't look up, still drawing as she replies. It was about a month ago. That's when Engine's eyes slowly move to Ruto, realization dawning. Because a month ago is also when Ruto first arrived in the abyss. The room goes still as everyone registers the coincidence, tension rising like static. Meanwhile, Ruto silently steps closer, eyes fixed on what Amo is drawing into the dirt. As Ruto gets a clearer view of Amo's drawing, something about it hits him hard. The image is familiar. He asks if that's supposed to be the angel because he recognizes that masked man. He saw him up above. That can only mean one thing. Those people, whoever they were, had come down to the abyss. He reveals there had originally been two of them. His companions are left stunned, unable to process the weight of what he just said. Ruto, undeterred, thanks Amo for giving him clarity. He doesn't care whether those so-called angels descended to find him or for some other purpose. If they came to the pit, he vows to track them down. He will do whatever it takes to uncover the truth about how to return to the surface and confront them, make them explain why they killed Regdo. One day they'll stand before Reg's grave and apologize. With that resolve, the darkness in his eyes lifts, and the old determined Ruto returns. Beside him, still kneeling, Amo quietly speaks up. She observes that, just like her, the gloves Ruto wears have turned his heart into that of a human. She's certain that their Jinki, their own thing, shares a strong compatibility with the broken parts of their humanity. She's realized that trying to fill the emptiness inside with random things never worked. What they already had was enough. It filled the gaps. She confesses she got it back. She reclaimed the emotions that define a human being. But now, with that humanity restored, the truth has begun to hit her. And as it does, tears begin to fall down her cheeks. Tears streak down her face as the truth sinks in. She finally understands what Mr. had really been doing to her all that time. The realization crashes over her like a wave. Being alone, she murmurs, is unbearably sad. Her quiet words reach Ruto. Gently wiping her tears, she admits that more than anything, she longed to feel needed by someone. But the idea of leaving the desert had always terrified her. So she stayed, hoping someone would come. Again and again she tried to form bonds with the people who passed through, but it never worked. Now she says softly she knows why Rudo came, to apologize. But before he can speak, she stops him. He doesn't need to say it. They're the same. Then she corrects herself, not just them but everyone. People only raise their hands to hurt each other, and that's why the world never changes. Rudo listens in silence, her pain weighing heavy in the air. Then he lifts his hand and offers it to her. Sitting beside her, he suggests they try extending their hands to others together. He admits he doesn't know how, but maybe they can learn. Amo looks at him, her tears finally drying. A faint smile touches her lips. She tells him he's already doing it, right now. Soon after, the group descends the stairs ready to depart. One of them asks if Amo truly isn't coming along. She responds that she needs to stay a bit longer to clear her head but asks them to keep in touch. She calls out to Rudo, raising her choker. He looks back, nods and agrees, they'll talk from time to time. At Engine's call, the others begin to move, and one turns to assure her they'll return for her someday. Rudo bids her a soft goodbye, promising they'll meet again. Amo smiles, watching them leave, and calls out one last time, "See you." As the team boards the vehicle and drives off, their talk shifts to what they've learned. Though a method to cross the boundary remains elusive, Engine points out they've at least confirmed the angel's existence, beings who seemingly can pass through it. They also saw a jinky marked with the same symbol as Rudo's gloves. Rio adds that the boots might belong to the same mysterious series the Vandals recently mentioned. It's a real possibility. Meanwhile, Rudo sits quietly, lost in thought. Back in Amo's home, she murmurs to herself about the angels, smiling at the thought they might want to see her again. Maybe next time they'd stay. But something shifts in the air. Her smile fades as she notices a shadow forming in the corner. She turns, confusion darkening her gaze. Someone's there, silently waiting. She demands to know who he is and what he wants, but the figure reaches for her boots. She resists, telling him to give them back. Alone, without help, the struggle ends with her motionless on the floor. At the same time, Rudo's thoughts echo. He remembers how furious he felt, how he once punched Amo, and how he'd imagined himself exploding with rage when he found out those fake angel bastards were down there. But now, after hearing her story, that rage seems to have dissolved. The attacker is revealed to be Jabber, who mutters that though the desert is cruel, he's satisfied. He managed to gain something from it in his own way. Elsewhere, Rudo still sits, deep in thought, wondering if he really feel any calmer if he spoke to Amo again.